It's clicking away.
Dun, dun, dun,
We are
dun, dun,
live.
dun, dun, dun,
Hey,
dun,
it
dun, dun,
worked.
dun.
Okay. I hope we've got sound and video going out. The preview I see over here is looking good. All right. So how many people do we have listening? We have 5. So at least our audience outnumbers the panel. That's a good start. Okay, so to the world at large, what we're doing today is this is our monthly Podish-Sortacast. And what we do is we just get the group at Freethoughtblogs together and we sit around and we chat about things. And this month, what we elected to talk about was the conflict between woke, whatever that is, or social justice, or diversity, equity, and what's the other one? DEI, whatever that is.
Inclusion.
Yeah, and I, I'm saying we're just saying we're here for basic humanity. Basic humanity. Treat everyone on the planet humanely is kind of our goal. So we're calling it woke, but it fits into a whole large category of things. And so we got that on one hand, and then on the other hand, uh, we're a bunch of nerds. We're skeptics and atheists and medical professionals and computer people and all this kind of stuff, which are generally thought of as being kind of hard and not interested in emotional things. And so we want to just talk a little bit about that conflict, which isn't really a conflict. So talking to Great American Satan before it started, he made the point that, yeah, this is all kind of nonsense, and we could sit here, we could just poke holes in our premise for our opponents, no problem. Okay, so the first question I wanted to throw out to everybody was to define woke. And to help us out there, I have a video that I was going to show. I'll just show a minute or so of it. It's a video of a Moms for Liberty person who gets asked this question. Oh, wait, I have to make sure. Let me stop for. I'm seriously out of practice here. I do this all year round, but then it's summer. I'm anyway. So there we go. I'm going to just play this for you. I hope.
Hi, I'm Alexa. Maybe you saw me outside or on Fox News, or maybe I teach your kid. My question is very simple. What does woke mean? Yes, I am the TikTok lady. Okay. What does woke mean?
Woke is rooted in Marxism, and it's what it means is that society is based in pitting people against one another.
Here we go again. A Moms for Liberty member cannot define what they claim to hate.
In basically giving somebody labels. So, as I'm sure you know what it means that it comes from a Marxist root.
Let's pause here. Upon her conclusion,
I will stop there. I think we got enough of that, right? So that's the question here for you is define woke for us and do a better
I,
job than that lady, okay?
I think from the point of view of the Moderns for Liberty crowd and their ilk, it is basically the equivalent of the term humorless feminist as it was used back in the 90s. It's a modern day version. It is a way of saying I'm going to dismiss your ideas and sneer at them without bothering to take them seriously or listen to them.
Yeah, it's
But I
shorthand for
think
I don't like you.
you're not one of our group. You're one of the group that we will mock and revile. But you
Yeah,
probably wanted to know what it originally meant, didn't you?
right. And we got a lot of this kind of thing years ago from, we were social justice warriors, and that was treated as a pejorative. And Atheism Plus was a great example of that. Just the fact that we had some atheists who wanted this social justice ideal to be practiced. That was terrible. It was unbelievable how much people hated that. And then this woman, it's just, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But then who knows? Maybe you other guys, will you agree? Is it all Marxism?
Well, as someone who's lived in a country where there's actually Marxist parties, this very clear. No, it has nothing to do with Marxism, of course. And many Marxists are not woke in any shape or form. So, as far as I understand, woke came from the Black liberation movement, but I mean, or the civil rights movement, where they actually my understanding and how I use it is basically understanding the systematic inequalities as place that we have to be aware of. I'm always reminded this back before Sinfest became a transphobic nightmare of a comic. He actually went from being a misogynist to being actually a feminist, and he actually described the becoming a feminist in a really good comic where this one very sexy caricature of a woman suddenly wakes up and realizes there's sexism all around her, and everywhere she looks, she sees it. And that's kind of the feeling you get with being woke. What is that? There's this systemic inequalities in place that you just can't unsee when you start learning about them. Some people are really good at ignoring them, even though that they know that they're. But in my sense, that's how it is.
Yeah, I think that's the core idea of woke, is you just suddenly become conscious of all this injustice around you and you want to do something about it. And apparently we're not supposed to be aware of this. It's like the Matrix, right? Like that movie. We're supposed to be in our little cocoons, generating energy. And
Can I just point out how cool it is to hear you say this while you're apparently in the middle of a massive spider web?
yes, and if I move my head a little bit, you'd see the spider, but I won't do that. Yeah. But yeah, the Matrix is a perfect example of this. And yet at the same time, the people who oppose these ideas are heavily using that metaphor of the red pill and the blue pill and all that kind of stuff. It's like they watched the movie and didn't get the main message of it at all. Great American Satan, you must have some ideas here.
Yeah, what Christian said, it clearly emerged from Black liberation, knowing like practically nothing about the exact history. I mean, it's AAVE, isn't it? Stay woke is like was the exhortation. And I think that I feel like the first times I ever heard that used was in the context not just of like look societal injustices broadly, but specifically like hinky government activity against the movement. Like, you know, stay woke to the possibility there's infiltrators in the Black Panther Party and stuff like that, right?
Uh-huh.
That was like you know, watch out for the man scheming on us. And but it did when it started to get popularized by SJW types, it was the broadening of it works perfectly. And for what they were saying, you know, it's like once you start to see some kind of injustices, you just can't stop seeing them. And that was actually like probably the first one for me and for a lot of us is like feminism. Like when you start seeing misogyny and you can't stop seeing it, and it's particularly for me, having been the misogynist, it was like you know, even if I wasn't formally part of a movement about it or anything, it was a matter of like and I think this is part of the reasons of what made people feel so bad about it in the atheist movement is it hits you in the idea that maybe you should feel bad about the way you acted at some point in your life. And it's all like, who are you to tell me I should feel bad about myself? And it's all like, well, if it helps you like come correct going forward, you should fucking feel bad about yourself, bro. Anyway, so Yeah, I have years of not really regarding women as full human beings without noticing that was what I was doing. And it just like,
I'm
you
going to
know,
speak up and say
yeah,
that I actually don't much care for the thought that feeling bad about yourself is somehow compulsory, which I think is kind of a stereotype of more aggressive people's views of what social justice is, and you're supposed to feel bad about yourself and how awful these SJWs are for making people feel bad about themselves and expecting people to feel bad about themselves and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, sometimes you have to be prepared to feel bad about yourself, whether you're an SJW or whatever you are, because you are not going to be able to learn or grow if you don't sometimes have those moments of, oh shit, I should not have acted in that way. And that is, and coming to that realization is how you do better going forth. But at the same time, I don't think there's anything constructive in feeling like you have to be in some kind of mindset of beating yourself up for it over it. And you can channel that feeling bad into, yes, I will be a better person. I regret what I did, but I'm going to try and be a better person in future.
Mhm.
yeah, that's fair. And but I think that there is I think it is kind of inevitable that if you are like practicing some awareness about injustices and like that you, particularly as you're trying to like recognize your unconscious biases, which is another big push that came from academic circles recently. You are you there's a recognition, I think, for an instinctive recognition, even for people that haven't been especially thoughtful about it, that if you do this, you are going to have moments when you feel bad at some point. And they're like the backlash is in part like just a like abject knee-jerk reaction against the idea that they should ever have to feel bad about anything. Like it's like you're kind of hinting that I might want to be feeling bad here for a second. Well, fuck you, man.
Yeah,
And also, you're also hinting that they might not have earned that position, which I think is also part of the problem for a lot of people. I mean,
uh-huh.
when to bring it to a completely different world than the one we normally work in. If you ever spoke with a high caste Indian person about the caste system, if the younger one who usually claimed this is nothing like it used to be, it's much better. There's not really a big problem any longer. Funny enough, if you speak with a low caste person, they're not quite in the same agreement. There's some apparently still some some issues around basically the whole caste system. Um, but because it's been improved so much, and it has improved, the high caste people just think that people are just blaming them for being in a better position, and quite think frequently think that they actually have earned that position. It's like, and that's easy to see when you look at it from the outside, but when you look at our own society, we have the same problem. Like white men tend to do better than any other group of people. Everything else considered equal, right? So
This is
that's
the
kind of
thing that this is the thing that like I really feel like is for me has been my the awakening for me was just that the kind of amazement, just kind of perpetual amazement that I had for some years there of just how much I was able to not see things, just be surrounded by like things that are bad, including my own behavior, and just be completely not noticing what was wrong with it. And the first times I even started to like get a hint of that feeling, I immediately felt bad and didn't understand why. And then like as it became more clear why, I was all like, "Ah, oh, Jesus Christ. Oh well." But I'm neurotypical, profoundly good self-esteem, and I cannot genuinely feel bad in an abiding way. So don't feel bad for me for feeling bad about that. It doesn't last.
Right. But you touched on something that hit the atheist community hard, I think, is a lot of atheists were committed to the idea that we're the oppressed ones in society, that we're the ones who are being discriminated against, who have to deal with all this Christian BS and all this kind of stuff. And being told that, well, no, you're not the most discriminated against. You don't have it the worst. I think that was a jarring moment for a lot of people in the atheist community.
I do find it weird that people see oppression as some kind of zero sum, you know, if you are oppressed, then that means I can't be oppressed, and I am oppressed, therefore you don't get to be oppressed, blah, 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 without, it seems to be fairly straightforward and simple that different groups of people are oppressed in different ways. And I mean, I'm trying. There is this really good blog post I read once, and it was somewhere on Orbit. I can't narrow it down any more than that. But it was about someone talking about the difference between their experience as being trans and their friend's experience as being cis but black, and just about how they had these completely different experiences. That, his friend was never going to be in the situation of not being able to use a public bathroom safely, but the author was never going to be in the position of, potentially getting pulled over while driving and shot for their skin color, and just, the different ways in which their different minority groups impacted on their lives, that was just in each case an experience that the other person wouldn't have, but which was not any the less real for it. So yeah, but I'm really quite, I mean, I agree with you that it is an attitude. It's just, I'm quite baffled by this attitude that where I'm the oppressed one, and so no other groups get to be oppressed.
The trip is when you see the inverse condition where somebody who's like into generally on the right side, trying to like, be good and progressive and getting ideas about the world, but they're like a little bit naive about it, and they think that just because somebody's in an oppressed group, that person is inherently good. But like sanctification of the oppressed is like that's a really bad idea. There are people that are oppressed on one axis that are going to be absolutely awful on another, all over the place. So it's like
As we've seen with TERFs.
Yeah.
I think that's the absolute classic example.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Wait, what's your example?
Sorry, TERFs.
TERFs,
it's like
yes,
they're
okay.
like you get these feminists whose reaction to
their
looking at
feminism
the ways in
is
which women are
legitimate.
oppressed to say, well, let's go ahead and oppress some other group. Let's dismiss the stories and experiences of some other groups. That's obvious odds to the way in which women have been oppressed. Like, what does not make sense? Or the whole thing about white feminism and how white feminists can often be just, completely blind to the ways in which they're committing microaggressions against women who aren't white.
The last time I met a person that was both black and trans and a woman, they were living in a parking lot. So like this stuff sucks.
And meanwhile, J.K. Rowling can live in a couple of castles and have billions of dollars and sit there, moaning and complaining that as a woman, she is so oppressed. And how dare those men step into her bathroom?
I think it's a shame to make J.K. Rowling into the sort of one voice of all things TERF. She is basically one woman who is not nearly as discerning as she thinks she is. But, she's one person whom it's easy to blame for everything because she's one very famous person. And, it's there's a lot of there's a lot of other people out there who might not have written popular books, but expressing ideas that are just as offensive or much more so.
Yeah,
but I think but the thing is important to remember running is also financially supporting TERF groups. Yeah. So she is actually more on the hook than a lot of other people. I'm not saying we should only focus on her, but we should really remember who she is. Like I mean, in the past we remember that Orson Scott Card as a Mormon was a bigot, a homophobic bigot who actually did what he could to push any homosexual person out of science fiction contending. So
yeah, but I think the key thing is you got one person who's got a lot of money and a lot of privilege, but they would be nothing if it weren't for the fact that there are all these groups that they can funnel cash to and promote and get them all, get people marching in the streets, passing legislation, doing all that stuff that, one person can't do that. It takes a mob.
Yeah.
I feel like before the transition from science blogs to free thought blogs, or maybe not. What was that person? The person who used to do tech support for us. Not Jason, but like Alex. Anyway, they were like I don't remember the pronouns. Were had that post about what they were calling Teflon, the turf group in London that was like all media figures, like politicians and journalists and stuff like that, especially that were like sort of in a bit of a gang of like being responsible for most of the propaganda, transphobic propaganda during a certain point in time. It's like yeah, pay attention to the crowd. That said, like singling out JK, it has some cultural utility in terms of like propaganda purposes. It's like saying like oh, here's somebody that you can kind of like hold up as an icon that you can burn an effigy if you're so inclined.
Yeah, but I get Sarah's point though that if you put that one figurehead up there and think all we got to do is beat J.K. Rowling and the problem goes away, then we're deluding ourselves. Because
you don't think sometimes like a scapegoat has some usefulness? I mean, I don't know, maybe
it has some satisfaction. That's not the same thing as some usefulness.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm coming from.
But satisfaction could be a goal in itself. But no, I think we're risking doing the same as a lot of Christians did when they went after Dawkins as the one person to crush it, and they would crush atheism. I mean, that was pure nonsense. We need to address the bigotry as a whole and not just the one person. I agree on that. But I also think we need to agree that each person, as they do something harmful, we need also to address that.
Okay, well, anyway, this leads into my second question, because what you'll find right now is that there's a lot of people who are complaining that woke is doing great harm to various institutions, that it's corrupting education, that it's infiltrating the federal government, etc., and that it's basically people arguing that woke poisons everything instead of God poisoning everything. But
yeah.
But the thing is, those people don't do a very good job of making a case. The University of Austin is a good example. They're recruiting all these people who have lost positions in academia, excuse me, and appointing them there and giving them special privileges in the university, etc. But the thing is, what is the actual cost of wokeness in our various institutions? Does it actually do harm if a factory puts up signs and passes regulations that say you can't discriminate against women or things like that? We got all these claims that all these DEI policies are terrible. They're wrecking everything. But have you experienced that? Have you found in your employment, in your positions, in the things you do, that social justice cramps your style? I mean, we're all white people here, right? So we're at the top of the heap. We should be fine, but we should be suffering the most because they're targeting us.
I would actually say yes. I think wokeness is causing problems, but that's only because it's half-hearted. The problem is when people start doing it and then push back, they roll everything back. We have seen that in some universities and we've seen it in some other places. Then it's harmful because then it shows that the people that should be taken care of, that they don't really count, and it shows the racist or let's just call it the bigots as a general term, the bigotry works. So in that sense, wokeness can cause harm. So either you have to commit, or it's better to just be kind of status quo.
By provoking a backlash, it's by forcing the issue, the backlash ends up being worse or something.
By bending backwards when you get the backlash. I'm not, because there will be a backlash. That's the I mean, especially in the US, you have whole organization just waiting for something to backlash against. So
at this point I have to ask, compared to what? Because the previous policies of not trying to work towards diversity, inclusion, and so forth, don't really seem to have done that well over the past several thousand years of human history of promoting the interests of women, non-white people, gay or transgender people, etc., etc. So if
my
there's
claim
a
would be, if you're in Texas or in Florida, it's worse now than it was 10 years ago. And that was because people, the institution did not stand and push back to the bigots, but bent it backwards. So that's in the sense. I'm not saying woke is bad, because obviously I'm all for it. I'm saying commit, and we have to be strong about it. Actually, I think more wokeness is the answer to this, not avoiding it. But I'm just saying you have to be prepared, and you have to be willing to stand against it. Otherwise, you get stuff like Florida or Texas, right, where there are now ridiculous laws on the book that prohibits. I mean, is it Texas that basically, or is Florida? I can't remember which is the place that basically can't talk about slavery in longer, right? So,
yeah, you have just named the two worst hellholes in America. So it's you're bringing me down, man. That's I don't want to think about Texas and Florida, but we have to. I know. I read an essay a while back, and I wish I could remember the author's name. It was a very provocative essay, because it was saying that DEI and being woke and all that is great, except that we always fall short in doing anything practical with it. And they made the point that we can make the case that we should be hiring more Black people and into responsible positions and all that sort of thing. But are we really, or are we just putting up signs and saying, this is our goal, we want to do this? And I felt that kind of personally, because I'm at a very liberal university, and we've got all that stuff about DEI. We're gung-ho about it. We've got a whole building dedicated, and this is a small university, so this is a big commitment, a whole building full of administrators and faculty who are dedicated to making everything equitable across the university. And yet at the same time, we are still very, very white. We have made zero progress in hiring any Black people. We've got a few gay people, and it's like we feel like, oh, that's really good. We can trot them out for every dog and pony show to show that we really are committed to this sort of stuff. But I feel like we're not making the degree of commitment that we need to. And that's going to go over really well with people who are against wokeness, because I'm saying, it's fine, but we haven't gone far enough. And they're saying, no, you don't. We don't want that at all.
But do you have enough white Christian men?
Yeah, I think we do.
Poor white Christian men.
Yeah. If we hire a brown person, then that's a white person who's lost a job.
I think. Yes, go ahead.
So the question is, what damage has woke done in
how have you been oppressed by wokeness?
How have I been oppressed by wokeness? Okay.
If you have.
I yeah, so oh well, okay. I think it's I, yeah, I mean, if when you don't have like at least the statements of principle, then it or some kind of policy in place to address things. Any place where there isn't a policy that addresses some kind of like offers some amount of protection for some kind of class that could be oppressed, that people bigots will just like step right in and play in that space that they have in that room. So you have to have some kind of policies to try to protect people. The and this has been the case in the government for a long time in the United States, that there's like there have been policies of inclusion, or at least to say that like you're not supposed to specifically exclude people. These policies have been in place in government agencies for decades now, right? And they just get expanded a little bit over time. Like they probably didn't used to cover sexual orientation, and then that got it added at some point, probably in the 2000s. I don't know the full history of the situation. And then just more recently, they very recently, they during the Biden administration, I think they added gender as a category of protected people. Um, and it's like when that's not there, there's room for oppression. In fact, it's like sometimes it's even written into the laws in ways that nobody ever really considered as being oppressive. It just seemed perfectly fine, which is like dress codes for government
Oh yeah.
workplaces were always like is mostly business casual, but business casual meant certain things. Like I think women were before a certain point, I think women were required to wear dresses or skirts at least or something like that, right? And then that got relaxed as more women were wearing pants, but maybe it didn't even get relaxed on paper until decades after that happened. You know, like sometimes the policies are slow to catch up with the realities. Nobody was enforcing it, but they could have, right? So if a woman wasn't wearing was decided I'm going to wear pants today, and that policy wasn't specifically in place that it's okay for women to wear pants, then she could have gotten some kind of reprisal, and there wouldn't have been any kind of legal recourse for it. So it's like you got to have some kind of protections in place, but how to, getting it also like forces the issue to where like, okay, now we're gonna have our annual lesson where we like sit here and watch the video where some awkward people that probably don't even believe in it, but like are out there trying to go like, well, this is the agency's position, and we all have to create this environment which is going to be inclusive and inviting to everybody, so nobody feels like out of place here and stuff like this. And it's like and that of course brings out the reaction and the crowd, and then you get to, as if you're one of those folks, let's say you're like the black person in a room where they're going all like, we're gonna be if you actually inclusive to black people, and everybody around you is white, then you get to, you can feel the people in the room that don't agree with that policy like looking at you. um so uh yeah, it's awkward but necessary.
Yeah. So, I mean, for instance, my university has no dress code at all. That we don't care what you wear. So you could chalk that up to wokeness being a benefit, that it's actually not doing any particular harm unless you invent a harm. Like we do have some very conservative religious groups in town who probably think that all that shameless exposure of flesh on students on campus is a great sin and does great harm, and we need to stop that sort of thing. Yeah, we got a major church group in town that enforces a dress code on their own people, and I can tell they would love to do that to the rest of us.
Do the women get bonnets?
They sometimes wear bonnets. They can't cut their hair. They have to have long hair, and they have to wear dresses.
Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can all point
So the
at Sarah.
people who made this rule were not the ones with very long, thick hair in summertime, I'm guessing. I mean, I'm serious. It's not just it takes a lot of time to take care of long hair. It's with hair as thick as mine. I go around with this in summertime. It's like wearing a furry hat on my head all day. So yeah, this is why I always get a haircut and are coming into summertime. And if that's offensive in the eyes of God, I'm afraid God will just have to be offended. Sorry,
Yeah.
God. You're
Yeah.
not the one who has to wear the long hair either.
And even if your hair isn't that thick, growing it down to your hips and then
Mm.
coiling it up tightly on your head,
Mm.
and then also being compelled to wear long
Yeah.
skirts. Yeah, this doesn't sound fun.
No.
But the men are in charge, so they don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to kind of answer your question, Lisa, I think we could generally say I don't think there's anyone of us who suffered through wokeness. I think rather the other hand, we have seen society become better for it. So
Oh, I'd agree, but then you talk to some people. I mean, Jordan Peterson thinks he's fired because of all those woke people dominating the University of Toronto.
yeah, I
Is he
mean,
Yeah.
fired? I
incompetent
hadn't
people
heard that he was
always have
fired. This
this.
is excellent news.
Oh,
This is
yeah. He lost his position. He's no longer,
emeritus.
yeah, and he's not allowed to practice psychiatry or psychology, whatever it is.
Psychology, yeah, I knew about
Yeah.
that one. I remember writing about him. And he was sort of on the verge of losing his license and was just
Yeah.
about, he was still trying to dance away from any consequences. And uh, um,
It looks like
that
he's on.
was the,
It looks like he's on the verge of losing his life or his marbles at any given moment. That guy is. It
That
almost
happened
feels.
years ago.
It almost
Yeah.
feels bad, like beating up on him, because, like, oh, maybe if he gets if we get too woke at him, he's gonna, like, OD on benzos and go into another coma and have to get rescued by his Russian oligarch buddies or whatever. You know, the guy's a freak. That guy's world
Yeah.
class.
But
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
but he's still making lots of money. So,
I think he's making a lot less money than he used to.
He's
But
he's, he's
I
like a
mean,
he's like a mystic. There was an interview he had with like some like guy that was more has like can actually think clearly and stuff like that, who's a disgusting conservative. And that guy's like going like asking him questions, and then he answers with like just abstract stream of consciousness nonsense, like like randomly like saying Virginia, Virginia, like a Edgar Allan Poe character, and then like the other guy's like yeah, yeah, okay. I was like they treat him with kid gloves over there because he's like he's the yeah, he's the mad mystic of the
right.
right wing. And it's like I'm just waiting for him to go like even further into it and like get to the point where they can't ignore it anymore. I
if you
don't
want
know
to,
how they're ignoring it already.
yeah, if you ever want to do to listen to a painful interview with him, try to find the one by Russell Brand, because Russell Brand is also completely cuckoo. So and they're just going either weird mystic direction, but fascists. I mean, obviously both of them. So
Yeah.
it's just in different flavors of it.
Yeah. It's like you gotta wonder if it's contagious. Those people get together and they just get worse and worse and worse and crazier and crazier. But yes, in the comments it's mentioned they asked Jordan Peterson to take some sensitivity training and he freaked out over it. Yeah, that's right. He just, if I were to say that there were costs to DEI and woke and all that sort of stuff, it is that it takes some time from me that I've had to take sensitivity training. Not they're not singling me out. It's like everybody. You're going to go in, you're going to learn about unconscious bias, and you're going to learn to talk properly to people without offending them and those kinds of things. But I've found those things, although they were tedious and they took time, and I had to go sit in a room and listen to all these people talk for, like students are exposed to. But it was actually kind of useful and kind of valuable, and so how can I complain about it? Because I'm not Jordan Peterson, I guess.
Yeah, well, I was going to say easily. You could just open your mouth and start complaining. I think that's how the other people do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
let's find
everything you just
something.
said there, you could turn into a negative, like how horrible it was for you. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
like we were saying earlier, that this is something where they were reminding us of these actions that have been taken in the past and making us feel bad for that and telling us to be better and improve and work on this problem. And
The University of Austin case is that like idea that their central thesis. I think there's like a kind of legitimacy to it, which is that they're saying that like by making and trying to protect diversity, equity, inclusion for people that are in various classes of society or whatever that might be oppressed, we are inherently going to find ourselves in a position of reducing the diversity of ideas because we're excluding fascists.
oh, good point. Yeah, we need
Yeah.
more of those Nazi ideas in our
So
curriculum.
that's
you know what? That's a price I'm willing to pay.
but that does actually kind of like raise a more like a less facetious problem of that society has to get kind of like come to grips with at some point, and which is that the personal is political. There's this idea that we can somehow be politically neutral in the face of politics that is gonna destructive to society. And that's just that's a big thing in my workplace is this idea that like oh don't talk about politics and we can all get along better. Okay, that's cool, but like and but we are gonna also be inclusive and all this kind of stuff like that. But like some people's politics are just literally having like Trump's face on like your locker says something about like it's like a direct insult to anybody who might be on his hit list that's in the environment. So it's like the political is inherently personal, and like we're gonna have to figure out some way to like maybe just if the people that are in responsible positions, the people that are in charge of the political parties particularly, could just have some fucking ethics about like what they allow their party to be, we wouldn't be in a position where it's like coming to a head like this. But like there's like entire swaths of human thought that are ultimately going to have to be excluded from every responsible position in society in order to like prevent them from just being like fascist cesspits. It's like it's fucked. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not that it's not like we're totally excluding them, because you can still take a history class and learn about fascism and the Nazis and all that sort of stuff. It's just that we're not going to be approving of them. Similarly, in biology, creationism is not excluded from the curriculum, except for the fact that we've got much more interesting and useful things to talk about. So we talk about those instead. But there have been occasions where I've talked to students about creationism, giving them my opinion of it, which is wholeheartedly negative. But and I think that's kind of what we have to do with things like fascism is, yeah, we're not going to kick you out of the university, but we're not going to waste time on it either. And we're going to teach you a much more useful and powerful things to use politically.
I will say that if they teach fascism as a good thing in the university, yes, then we are going to kick them out. So there will be cases where
This is the loss. This is the damage of woke.
I'm okay with that.
I can't learn about Nazism from a Nazi at my community college anymore.
I remember my youth when I was a teenager and there was Nazi gangs. This was there was the back in the punch Nazi times. Let's put it this way. This is times are different. Different. I know that. And as an adult, I do not approve of hitting people as a general rule. So, but
Yeah.
but I'm not really. I think that sometimes some of these people forget what the past was. Sometimes.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm looking at the time. We've got just 10 minutes left. And I've got a bunch of these questions that I was going to hit you guys with. So I think I'm going to have to pare it down a little bit and move it right along. Okay. So one of the concerns that we were going to bring up is this whole business of skepticism and atheism and whether it's appropriate to discuss things of social import, things like social justice and so forth, because we're all committed to that idea of Ben Shapiro's, right? That the facts don't care about your opinions, and yeah, the emotions should be set, even though he never does. He's a very emotional guy. But anyway, that we're supposed to be thinking very concretely about everything. So what's your argument there? Are you gonna tell me that this doesn't conflict with atheists and skeptics who are trying to be very super critical and very mathematical and very rigorous when we tell them, well, you got to think about how much that's going to hurt people?
I think that it is a fact that prejudice and bigotry hurt people. I think the facts do back that up. So,
True.
yes, I feel that my skepticism has led me to be skeptical of the defences for many of the things that have gone on in society in terms of defending the indefensible.
Okay. Anyone else want to make your argument?
I mean, obviously, I don't think there's any conflict between being a good skeptic and being a that's but I think there's one thing we need to be aware of is that there's a lot of assumptions we always do in society that we might need to look at once in a while. There's a Danish feminist, Emma Holden, who's doing a really good series of lectures. You can debate about details in it, but it's really good about the kind of what we put value on in society. And it turns out that a lot of economic models don't really put value in stuff that has to do with kind of household care, healthcare, and stuff like that. But anything like the Danish economic models, if they calculate something, then it's assumed in itself that any tax break is self-financing. But they don't really take into, if they do something else, they don't really take into care kind of consideration how much money this, like how much time they spare from like private healthcare and stuff like that. So there's a lot of assumptions based in the economic models. So when we say that, we have to be analytical, we also need to stop up and look at our analytical tools and say, what assumptions are they based on? And those assumptions are pretty often not particularly rogue. So we need to stop up and say, okay, yes, we need to. Obviously, we're analytical, and as Sarah said, there's clearly a harm to society as a whole and to individuals, specifically through all these things we're fighting. But if there's something that says there's not, maybe we should stop and look and see what assumptions are based on, what assumptions are they based on, and just not assume that.
So the idea there would be that there's people, you could conduct yourself in a very logical, irrational way when you're like planning and structuring your society and stuff like that, but that there's some bedrock assumption that you are that made the logic and rationale and everything else fundamentally flawed, right?
Yeah. And I think we'll find there's a lot of those, because I mean a lot of our general ideas are based on 18th century white men's thinking, right? And it's not that long. It's not. I mean, I can't remember how many years ago, but I think it was in the 90s. There was one person got a Nobel Prize in economics, which is not a real Nobel Prize, but for a paper saying that the slave trade was not wasn't economically viable, kind of the whole triangle, which is complete nonsense, of course. But it was it was a nice politically correct thing at that time. So, so obviously you're trying to attack the bedrock assumptions of this, but then you have to obviously stop up and say what are you basing your assumptions on all the time. So yeah.
I think one of the things that both of you are saying is that we can be critical thinkers and we can be skeptical and we can do this hard-nosed analysis. And when we do that, what we determine is that some of the cherished myths of society are wrong. We can actually demonstrate that and say, yeah, for instance, eugenics, no, that doesn't work. Not just talking about as not being a viable goal for society, but that biology is too complicated for that and it just won't work. You can't do that without making huge sacrifices and going in unpredictable directions and so forth. So we have that edge in that we can apply science and reason and say, yeah, we can rule out some things. Like we've got the historical example that shows that fascism doesn't work, right? It causes so much misery and pain in the world that that's a good reason to reject it. And I think that's where we can, still maintain our logical advantage that we're doing science and reason here, and we can effectively state what doesn't work and what does work, and we should go in the direction of things that do work, and that which means we should overthrow capitalism now because that doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Just need
I
to find something else instead, though.
Yeah.
I do think what was I going to say about this? I'm having a really hard time thinking because I'm doing a lot of overtime, and I'm like, my job is thinking and being like socially functional for like several hours a day for days and days and days on end, and I just like I am burned. But
That's why capitalism doesn't work.
uh, what the heck was I going to say? Okay. All right. So we do have an advantage when it comes to the whole facts and feelings thing, right? But in that the truth does and reason does support being good to doing good things that are good for people and for the world, right? Like if you like really look at the objectively at all the facts, rationales, reasons, even if applying like the coldest, most dispassionate kind of thought to it, there's some amount of it's the resulting values that you come up with are inherently going to be a lot better than anything the conservatives are coming up with, right? Facts do support like progressivism, especially when in just in the whole like idea of like capitalism essentially versus the biosphere. Like the facts are definitely stacked against capitalism on that one, right? But uh it doesn't matter at the end of the day because like in the discussions that the fascists are having where they're going like using mantras like facts that your facts don't care about your feelings and stuff like that within those conversations, everybody who's involved in those conversations like just isn't like they hung up the critical thought at the door, and like they're just it's just words to them that like that tingle their funny bits, and it's like I just you can't logic your way around fascism. This is one of the things where I'm kind of like feeling the limits of skepticism as a method these days more than I ever did before. Not that I was ever like I was always more on the atheist side than the skeptic side in the whole atheo-skeptic community, but like but I mean, I think that it's ironic. I think that I'm becoming more of an ideal skeptic in a sense these days than I ever was before because I'm kind of doubting everything. But in terms of the whole classic concept of what a skeptic should be, but that's gotten me to a place where I'm just like skepticism as a rhetorical tool is practically dead to me. I don't even know what to do with it. But tying it, how do I tie that back to the thing here? Like skepticism versus is skepticism incompatible with wokeness? Skepticism as a cultural concept has kind of been taken over by a bunch of shitlords, and skepticism as since all words are at the end of the day are cultural concepts. In a sense, anybody who's like applying what should be considered skepticism to things do we own the word skeptic when the majority of the people that are talking about it are, irrational freaks? I don't know. I Words have
Like Michael
meanings.
Shermer. Let's just mention one prominent skeptic, Michael Shermer, who's turned more into COVID
Oh,
skepticism and stuff like that. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. The extremes of skepticism seem to take you to very bad places.
there's a lot of good. There's a good. I mean, I have to defend skepticism because I do consider myself still a skeptic, and there's some rather good skeptics. I mean, especially, I will say the US have a bit of a problem, especially England. They actually seem to be really good there, organized. But even there has been some really big disappointments. So
England is the birthplace of anti-vax, is the modern anti-vax movement, and but when that anti-vax doctor that like kicked it all off, wanted to retire somewhere, he got a castle in Texas.
Andrew Wakefield.
yeah.
I think it's a mistake to say that he kicked it all off. He basically reaped a lot of money and fame out of a movement that is very much already existing. And as a result, he became the very visible face of it. But, the anti vax movement pre existed.
That's
Mhm.
from the very invention of vaccines. It was always there, as just but and in a sense, if you like completely expunged it from human thought, as long as vaccines existed and humans are capable of thinking things in the way that they do, they'd probably reinvent the movement from scratch.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think it's probably fair to put the modern anti-vax movement on him, though.
I understand why you would do it, but I actually am sorry because I actually was debating the anti-vaxxers before he became the big name together with people like Orwell and stuff like that. So there was actually a big movement, but yeah, he gave a because Lancet published his article, he definitely pushed it a long way. Maybe this is a good subject for some other time when we could invite also if we could
The
get David Gorski.
the big
Oh,
failures of
yeah.
peer review in history and the consequences they've had.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Not my domain.
No, bro. There's like Org or David Gorski. He would be a great one to involve in and talk about this because he remembers because he's been part of the. He went from
Yeah.
he actually went from fighting Holocaust denial to anti-vax.
Yeah.
Uh, so and there's a straight line between those two.
There is. Yeah. Yeah. Crank magnetism just makes them all pool in one place. Well, so we are at our hour-long limit. So we should just wrap it up real quick. What's your take-home message? What should we do in the future? How should we treat skepticism versus how we treat, things like DEI or whatever? What's the balance?
Should I start? And my message is that skepticism is a really important tool, but we'll have to remember that all this is about humanity and actually being humane to other people. So if your skepticism gets in the way of that, then maybe you're doing your skepticism wrong. So stay woke.
Uh-huh. Anyone else?
I think if I had to sum up actually being woke as opposed to the non for liberty, blah, 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 blah version of being woke, in a nutshell, it's about being willing to respect and listen to other people's stories. And I think that that's a point where people can take skepticism too far, that because they're skeptical about, oh, I've heard this way of people twisting the facts to try and prove this, that, and the other, and they're rightly skeptical of that, they've reached the point where they become skeptical of other people's experiences, and that's not such a good thing. So I think in that sense, you can overdo skepticism to the point where it conflicts with being woke. But I think it's like anything else in life. You're not necessarily just because you try and take an approach to something does not mean you have to push it to extremes. And I'm skeptical about things, but that doesn't mean that when I'm presented with good evidence, something that I'm not going to say, yeah, you've convinced me. And I think that is completely compatible with skepticism, that as well as being willing to question everything, you also have to be willing to look at the answers you're given, weigh them up and say, yeah, this makes perfect sense as an answer. And to me, things like wokeness and DEI initiatives, I think they do make a great deal of sense as an answer. And I would say my skepticism took me to those points.
Mm-hmm. Gus, you got anything?
Anti-wokeness is racist. I mean, like, it kind of like, it goes with, on one level, it kind of like, oh yeah, obviously, whatever. But like on another level, it's like, the reason why this was the word that they fixated on is because it's grammatically incorrect to white people English. Yeah, I think it's I think that the reason why they're stuck on it is because decided to stick on that is because it just immediately opposing that construction of the verb awake was like is something that's going to inherently appeal to people that think that black culture in the United States is a bad thing, and we should all start getting more waspy. Um, I don't know. In terms of like the value, I guess I'm probably not the ideal person to be on this panel in one sense because I am starting to lose faith in the value of skepticism. So I don't have a whole lot to say on that front. That's kind of
I feel like
my
there's an
point.
inherent contradiction having faith in skepticism.
Interesting thought. We're this is the essence of a free thought blog or network, right? A little disagreement from time to time.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's the heart of skepticism to question everything too. Even skepticism, we ought to be thinking these things through. Okay, well, that was all very good. I think we need to wind it up here, and we'll meet again next month with a completely different topic. We'll see what it is. But we got some suggestions already. We should talk about anti-vax stuff. On the back channel, it was suggested that we talk about artificial intelligence again. We'll surprise the audience and we'll let you know next month. Check back in July. Okay, with that, shall we say goodbye to everyone? Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Ending stream.
Bye.
All right.
We did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. Good. And I did laugh a little bit